Hi everybody, today we'll be talking about cache memory. Okay, so our title is CACAC cache memory. So this is a very cool thing while you are designing some server and database and systems. So let me draw some figure here to make it clear. Suppose there is some users and server and some databases as usual. So user requesting for data to server and it's getting its responses, right? So this is the general scenario while designing a system or software. So what is the role of a memory? Suppose a user asking a data most frequently, that means this read functionality is much more than the write. So in this case, without asking from database, we can have some cache memory here. Okay, so the most frequently data can be cached here after caching, after getting the data from the database for the first time. Suppose it's now in cache, so server will pulling the data from cache and send it to the user. So in that case, it will reduce network calls. Okay, so it will reduce network calls, and then we don't need to ask our database, as it is time it is very costly regarding data fetching. So it's reduce database load. Okay, and another thing, it also reduce computations. This means suppose we want to have some salary average of our users, then we can face it for the first time, and as salary is not very dynamic, so we can save it to our cache, and then we can have this cache frequently without having some network calls to the database. So it's more efficient in that case, while reading data is much more frequent than writing data to the databases. So in that case, we can use our cache memory here. So there is a question arise that why we don't fetch all the data from the database and set into the cache, as it is much faster. So there is some problems that we can't store all the data in the cache memory because it's much costlier. That means then what is the reason to save in the database and save in the cache? So the policy is we can hold our infinite data in the database and the most frequently data in the cache. So this is the policy. So the next thing is consideration while using cache memory. Consideration while using CACAC cache. Okay, so while using cache memory, we should keep something in mind, that consistency. That means suppose some other user is making update, making some updatation in database, and then this data is not updated into the cache memory. Another user fetching this data from there, and then the data consistency will be break here, because there is different data in the database and different data in the cache memory. So in that case, if the data is not much valuable, then it's okay, totally okay. But if this data is password or something else, then there will be a problem. Then this user can't log in with his cache data. Okay. So another thing is to mitigate failure. Okay, so suppose one of our database for tsunami or something other else has been destroyed. So how could we get our data in that case? So if we have some cache memory here, instantly we can have our data, and then when our database is alive, and we can again fetch data from the database and set into the cache memory. And another thing is expiration policy. Okay, so while designing a cache memory with our server and database, we should have some ideas on expiration policies, that this cache expiration shouldn't be so long or shouldn't be so short, because if so long it can be a tail further, and if we don't remove this, and if it's very short, then there is no use to save our data in the cache memory every time and remove with a very short time. So its expiration policy should be in the middle, that's not too much long and not too much short. Okay, and the last one is very important, is eviction policy. I think I should write here eviction policy. That means how could we store our data, or how should our data store in the cache memory? This is called eviction or remove from cache memory. So there are several algorithms, LRU, least recently used, and LFU, least frequently used, and FIFO. These are the common algorithm for the eviction policy, and this thing is also called cache policy. Okay. So the least recently used policy is there, a very famous policy. It says that which cache is used more hour ago. That means if we have some cache used 1 hour ago and 2 hour ago and 3 hour ago, then it will, if we need to input some new cache, then it will remove this cache if our cache memory is shortest with memory. So it will remove the 3 hour ago cache here from here. Okay, so these are the consideration while selecting some cache strategy in our system design. So let me show you where to use this cache memory, with server or with databases. Suppose this is our server 1 and this is our server 2. So why should we, and this is our database, okay, single database. So why should we use cache memory? Generally we use cache in our internal desktop or computer. So this is the cache here. So in that case, if we change some, if we make some changes here, then it will not be consistent with that, and if we lost this server, it will take all data with his grep. So this is the problem. So to mitigate this problem, we can use a global cache here. This is sometimes called data persistence while using cache memory. This is sometimes called this is Redis. We use Redis here. It's a great tool, and it's most famous tool for persistent data, or particularly for caching data. So all our cache should be here, and while fetching this data from cache, it can do all functionality which we discussed earlier, that global caching will solve this problem. Okay, so there are another two things, that is write through and write back. Write through, that means if we want to make some updatation in our database, then we most probably go to the server. First of all update the cache and then update to the database. Okay, it will first update to the cache and then to the databases. And write back policy is less performance, that means it will go first to the database and make some updation, and it will update the global cache. Okay, so in that case it's less performance. And I will have some blog in my description, and you will have some more ideas on write through and write back. So I think this is now for this session. We will go further more with this cache memory in the next tutorial. Thank you.